Hello and welcome back to another Indianapolis Colts podcast. It is April 4th. We are getting closer and closer to the NFL draft. And as the days go on, I'm caught looking at more and more of these mock drafts that are flying around from people close to the Colts and people of national media coming up with what they think could be a potential fit for the Indianapolis Colts. I really looked today because I covered it in a previous podcast of part one, basically, where I went into depth a little bit more about each player, and I kind of gave three examples for players that could go in the first round for the Colts. Well, I was thinking about it, and I I didn't really like that there was only I only gave three examples. So I went through and I went through even more mock drafts that I didn't look at the first time to see kind of what people would think. I agree with some of it, and some of it I will not. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes here. Obviously, looking at this draft, we have the Colts have 21 of 22 starters returning this season. So, you can kind of look back and say, okay, well, like last year, you needed, three or four definite starters out of this draft right away to have any sort of chance. And you got that. Well, I mean, that was great. Great job, Chris Ballard and his team for getting the guys. But this year, you have a better team going into the draft, so you can be you could breathe a little easier and knowing what you're going to pick. So, I wouldn't have a problem with them taking a guy like Byron Murphy, for the cornerback that I've seen kind of really attached to the Colts a little bit here recently, just because of that fact that you have three capable players at corner currently on your roster that did well last year. Obviously, you like Pierre Desir. You signed him to a 3-year deal. That's great. So you have your guy. You have Quincy Wilson and Kenny Moore who play their tails off. Absolutely. Could Byron Murphy come in and play some nickel corner? It's kind of inevitable that, somebody's going to get nicked up one game. They're going to need somebody to come in. I would rather have a first-round pick than some undrafted free agent that's got to go out there and cover DeAndre Hopkins when they switch. You know what I mean? So that's one of the things. And Byron Murphy is listed in this 20 mock drafts. I went through and kind of tallied each person's numbers and what they were. And Byron Murphy was listed in 4 mock drafts that I looked at. I've seen him in even more than that, but in the 20 that I looked at, he was listed 4 times. The only one that was listed more than him going to the Colts is Dexter Lawrence, who I mentioned in the last podcast. He was in 7 of the 20 mock drafts going to the Indianapolis Colts. Does he fit into the system? Thinking more and more about it, I'm not really sure. The Colts are kind of really looking at speed and presence in there, but he's 6'4" and 342 pounds. So, you could plug him in there, and he's, like I said already, he's, NFL size. So I'm not going to really talk about that a whole lot. Jerry Tillery was listed 3 times in these mock drafts. And you kind of go down the list here, and then this is kind of where you're starting to get to the 1 and 2 type guys listed. Some of them had A.J. Brown. I have 2 here listed with A.J. Brown going in the first round of the Colts. Jacques Polite, this guy from Florida. He's a defensive lineman. They had him going first round of the Colts, which I think is a little bit early. I've seen him a little bit go into the second round. I'll get into that. So you could definitely look at him. Jeffrey Simmons, he had an ACL injury. He's a defensive lineman, and he could really come in and be a presence. You got to look at how he is physically and all that sort of stuff. But I think that he's a first round pick. There's certainly talks that he'll fall to the second round, but I'm not convinced enough to go him on your 26th pick. Taylor Rapp going to the first round here. This is not a good one. He's a 4.7 40. That even as a box safety. I mentioned him in my last podcast a little bit too, that I kind of liked him and what he did, but a 4.7 40. That's just that is a red flag for sure. I mean, your defensive back has to be a little bit faster than that. I mean, I'd say 4.5 high is going to be kind of drifting away. So 4.7 is not very good. N'Keal Harry, the wide receiver, big body guy, 6'4". He could be that guy that makes plays for you on third down when they're double coverage TY. Throw it up to him. You already have your big body guy in Ebron too. But if you can, keep on adding, you brought in Devin Funchess, and you have an idea of what you're trying to build here at the skill position. Well, bringing in a guy like N'Keal Harry as the big body receiver could be a great thing. I mean, you have your TY that's small. Devin Funchess is a little bit bigger body guy, but having another guy, I don't think it hurt. I think that he's more of a low 20s pick, so probably not for him. And he was listed 2 times. So all of those that I've listed were all in the first round. So that's about 8 players or so that were listed. You could have a few more in there, and some of them I didn't even go to list because I thought that they were either they would go too early, so it's not even point talking about them, or somebody has a second rounder going in the Colts in the first round, which is silly. And I looked at a couple of the second round and third or second round picks for the Colts in these mock drafts. I didn't look at 20 because I didn't find 20 of the multi-round picks, but 3 times it had AJ Brown going to the Colts with the 34th pick of the draft, which I've already mentioned that I really like this pick. He's that receiver that you could be looking for, but like I've mentioned, I think this is too early for a wide receiver. I think that they will not go that route. So looking at guys like Jonathan Abram, the safety, that could definitely be something that could play a little bit more into it if Jonathan Abram was there with that pick. Because I mean, I really liked him. He had some great film. He could play kind of more of your center field. I don't know if he could be your box safety type guy. I don't know if that's really kind of what Ballard's looking for, but he could kind of do a little bit more than your Taylor Rapp, which was listed right here again in the second round. 2 times I saw Taylor Rapp was going to the Colts. One of them had, 2 of them had Ja'Kai Polite, the guy from Florida. He's a smaller guy. He had 11 sacks in his final year with Florida. He's 260 pounds as a defensive lineman, which is a far cry of what your Dexter Lawrence is. So I think that he could maybe bring a little bit more speed. But apparently he had bad interviews at the NFL draft. He wasn't – I don't know if it was his presence that he didn't carry himself well, or he just wasn't very technical when talking about his game. But looking at his stats and looking at his film, it looks like a guy that can get to business. And, guys on the defensive line, those guys are not – if you look at a quarterback and they have a bad interview or they're bad at the whiteboard, that's a red flag. Well, at the defensive lineman, that's kind of more brute force than it is, being football savvy. Certainly, you have guys like Robert Mathis who are very football savvy, and that led them to great careers. But you gotta have guys that are, I'm going to use Ndamukong Suh, who I wouldn't say are football savvy, but have created a great career for themselves because of their approach to the game and their nastiness and tenacity. So I think that could be a fit. I think that they're looking to increase their defensive line depth, and if you get a guy like this that is a little bit smaller, he can bring some stuff, maybe put him on the edge a few times. It could work. So I look at that. Uh, I look at the I looked at the 57th pick of the Colts, so the second round pick. I had Jamal Dean, a cornerback. I saw 3 mock drafts that had him going there. So people are seeing that the cornerback is kind of more of the need for the Colts. Obviously, I think the overwhelming thought for the Colts is pass rush or depth at the defensive lineman position. But cornerback is something that I think has kind of been overlooked right now. Those guys that the Colts have right now are starter quality, but you need another guy, a higher pick to bring in that is a little bit more developed than maybe a former Division II athlete of Kenny Moore, who has certainly stepped up and proven to be a good player, but it's came in a little bit slower progression than maybe a high tier Division I athlete. So looking at that, I think that second round pick is maybe where the Colts will go to a receiver. That you have some names out there that you see kind of available in that realm. So maybe that's when they'll take their chance. Maybe that's when they'll go with a corner. They could put off getting a defensive tackle if they maybe want to get a wide receiver or a corner a little bit earlier, depending on what they want to do. But I really think that it's going to be first round, for sure a defensive pick. It's not going to be a wide receiver in the first round, even though I like some of the receivers that are being thrown around. But I think that it's definitely defense. I think that it's probably going to be defensive linemen. It might be a corner. It might be a safety. We don't know what's going to happen. We'll see kind of in the next few weeks where everybody flies. But I just wanted to kind of make this one, throw a little bit more names around to see. And inevitably, I still kind of like the Dexter Lawrence. If Christian Wilkins, if he could drop all the way to 26, obviously you'd want to get that too. I wouldn't mind. I could take the argument of the Colts trading up to get your future defensive end pass rusher. So Ballard is gonna look into all these things, and if you have to give up a pick to get your future pass rusher, well, that's something that Ballard is going to have to consider. I don't necessarily think that that's what you have to do right here in this situation. I think that staying with the 26th pick, it's probably the best bet in my opinion. So there's some guys that you could pick that could be an impact right away on the Colts. So look for them to do that. Looking at some more stuff for the Colts, the Colts video that they put out with the next pick, going inside the locker room of the Houston game and showing the passion of Coach Reich, talking about the mission and the climb that they were on and how they didn't get all the way to the top, but the next time they're going to go back, it's beautiful. And it makes me so appreciative for Frank Reich that he's coming here and he's been that guy for you to be this leader of the entire football team. And it's obvious that they are around him. You can hear guys, it's probably Ebron, but you can hear guys crying when he's talking. It says so much that these guys are fighting for each other. They want to go out and they want to be with each other. It's not like that in every locker room. And we have never seen this kind of behind the scenes footage like this of the Colts. So credit to their PR staff and them for allowing this, and Chris Ballard and owner Jim Irsay for signing this off, because this is a great thing for fans to see in depth and know a little bit more about their team. So that's great. I think that it shows you who the leaders are. And to see Ebron in tears saying how much he loves his team, and he brings them all together in the huddle and he says family on three. That's more than just a little PR piece. That's more than just a post that you put on Twitter. That means a lot, and that's going on behind closed doors every day during the season. Guys like Jacoby Brissett and Eric Ebron, and it's not necessarily Andrew Luck, going out there and being the vocal guy. It's these guys that you wouldn't necessarily expect stepping up and being the vocal leaders, and it's awesome to see. I mean, that's exactly why Ballard brought Ebron onto this team, not only for his 15 touchdowns on the year, but when you lost, and to bring his team together when they lost at the end of the season. I mean, my gosh, that's worth his deal that he's brought on, and to see him come back another year is going to be great. So I really like that. Keeping on this expectations for the Colts, Jim Irsay is gone on another interview and said some funny stuff. Jim Irsay is going on with a interview to the Indianapolis Star, and has said that his goal for the Colts, and that the Colts' goal, is to win 3 Super Bowls in a row. Well, certainly a tall order, and something that I think would be something that would be almost impossible to get. But we'll see. I think you gotta get there. You gotta get one first, and once you get one, then you can start talking about the others. The Golden State Warriors. They're about to win 3 in a row. That doesn't happen every day, and it certainly doesn't happen in the NFL like it does the NBA. So to say that, I think it's great. He has belief on his club, and on Andrew, obviously, and Frank Reich and Ballard on leading this team. But come on, let's slow the brakes. Come on, let's win a few games in the playoffs first before we say 3 in a row. I love you, Jim, but all right. And the last thing I wanted to talk about, new safety that was brought on, Derek Kindred, waived from the Browns. He played in 16 games with them, started only twice, 45 tackles, with 33 of them being solo, and an interception. What do I think of this? I think it's just depth. I think it's not looking on guys that are, unrestricted free agent, or not unrestricted free agents, my bad. Rookies coming in that are playing in the Kansas City game and giving up big plays or big penalties. I'm not going to name anyone, but I think we know from that Kansas City game. I think that's kind of what they're looking at. They're going to see what this guy could do at training camp. Why did the Browns cut him? I don't know. It's not really a great sign that they cut him at this time of year, but hey, if Ballard likes what he sees, I'm not going to question it. Didn't necessarily see that coming because of, kind of the need for safety in the draft. I don't think this changes that at all. I don't think this reject from the Browns is going to be your new starting safety by any means, but he could definitely be maybe your 4th string, something like that. Maybe challenges your guys. Who knows? But that's what I think, just depth help. So that's really all I wanted to talk about today. I appreciate you guys for listening, and I'll be coming back next week as hopefully things start to pan out a little bit more for the Colts and leading into the draft. I got some things already that I want to kind of chime in a little bit about, but I didn't want to make this one too long. I appreciate you for listening. If you did like it today, please leave me a like and hit the subscribe button. I really appreciate it, as I'm trying to keep this channel growing and keep bringing content. So that really helps me out. And also leave a comment. I'll try my best to look at every single comment and read them and see what you guys have to say. So I appreciate it, and you guys have a good rest of your day and have a great weekend.